Who was Ruth Bader Ginsburg? By Sophia Kasim. Ruth Bader Ginsburg spent a lifetime flourishing in the face of adversity before being appointed Supreme Court Justice. Born March 15, 1993, Ruth Bader Ginsburg was welcomed by two lovely parents, Cecilia Bader, her mother, who sadly died of cancer in her early teens, and her father, Nathan Bader. As a middle to low-income family, she lived her early life in Brooklyn, New York, which is home to many of our activities these days, but she lived in a small, secluded home. Despite Ruth's family's economic background, her mother installed a love of education, and for her high school life, she was determined to get the best grades and excel in her class. In fact, she graduated her senior class as the top student, also known as valedictorian. Ruth's academic success continued when she was an undergrad in Cornell, and there she also met her husband, Martin. After graduation, she put her education on hold to start a family, and she had her first child in 1995. Shortly after she had her first child, Martin, Ruth's husband, was drafted off to war for 2 years, and upon her husband's return from service, Ginsburg and him enrolled in Harvard Law. At Harvard, Ginsburg tackled the challenges of motherhood and of a male-dominated school, where she was one of 9 females in a 500-person class. She faced gender-based discrimination from even highest authorities there, who chastised her for taking a man's spot at Harvard Law. Fortunately, Ruth did not finish her year at Harvard. Instead, she transferred to Columbia Law and finished top of her class in 1959. This was due to a small change in her husband's plan, where he accepted a law firm in New York. You would think with her exceptional academic record, Ruth would be shielded from her gender-based discrimination women faced in the workplace in 1960s. Yet, she had difficulties finding a job until a favorite Columbia professor explicitly refused to recommend any other graduates before U.S. District Edmund L. Palmieri hired Ginsburg as a clerk. Ginsburg clerked under Judge Palmieri for 2 years, and after this she was offered some jobs at law firms, but always at a much lower salary. So, Ruth instead took some time to pursue her other legal passions, civil procedure, choosing to join the Columbia Project on International Civil Procedure. Aside from that, she became the first female professor at Columbia to earn tenure, and she also directed the influential Women's Rights Project of the American Civil Liberties Union during the 1970s. One of the main directors in the influential Women's Rights Project of American Civil Liberties Union, she led the fight against gender discrimination and successfully argued 6 landmark cases before the U.S. Supreme Court. Ginsburg took a broad look at gender discrimination, fighting not just for the women left behind, but for the men who were discriminated against as well. Ginsburg experienced her share of gender discrimination, even going so far as to hide her own pregnancy from some of her colleagues. This dedication, passion, and determination for change was evident to many, including Jimmy Carter. In fact, he appointed her to the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia in 1980, and she served on the court for 13 years until 1993, when she was nominated by Bill Clinton to the Supreme Court of the United States. Ruth Bader Ginsburg began her career as a justice where she left off as an advocate, fighting for women's rights. In 1996, Ginsburg wrote a majority opinion in the United States versus Virginia, holding that qualified women could not be denied admission to Virginia Military Institute. Her style in advocating from the bench matches her style from her time at ACLU. Slowly but steady and calculated. Instead of creating a sweeping limitations on gender discrimination, she attacked specific areas of discrimination and violations of women's rights one at a time. And so on, continuing on that, she created change. This way of action as a Supreme Court justice was peculiar. It was different from the rest and it broke tradition. However, she enabled voices to be heard that would often be ignored by her male counterparts. Before she left office, she had one thing to share, her one wish.
Barely enough.
People ask me, when would you be satisfied with the number of women on the court? When there are 9. For most of the country's history, they were all white men.
Until her death on September 18, 2020, Ruth worked hard in order to advocate for women's rights and gender equality, and she left the world by making a difference.